Well, welcome to an extra special episode of Wesley Live today. It is my distinct honor to have Dr. Wayne Schmidt with us today. Dr. Schmidt is the General Superintendent of the Wesleyan Church, as most of you already know, and is literally one of my favorite human beings on the planet and one of my favorite authors as well, as I've got his book right here. If you haven't read Ministry Velocity, please read it, order it today. Dr. Schmidt, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm working remotely, as so many are, from our family homes. So that has both its pluses and its adjustments.
Amen. Amen. So just to jump right in, for those that don't know, you're an IWU grad. So could you maybe, and then from there you transitioned right into church planting. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about your transition from being an IWU graduate to being a church planter right away in Michigan?
Well, actually, I'm a Marian College grad, which is pre-IWU. And so I go back to the dark ages and was blessed during those years to be in a prayer partnership with Dennis Jackson, who now leads Global Partners for the Wesleyan Church. But we were two just kids in college with dreams God had put in our heart. And part of the dream God planted in my heart as a result of a comment from Laurel Buckingham was, pray that God would call you to a community where you could spend a lifetime. And Dennis Jackson and I had a prayer partnership. I prayed that prayer with all my heart. And he called me to Kentwood, which is a suburb of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was privileged to be part of a church planting team. There was no Wesleyan church there, so being called to the community was easy. There was no church to call me. And would spend the next 30 years at that church. And Joel, I just got to tell you, local church is such a blessing to serve in that way. And when I look back on the 30 years, there were two things that really stand out about, beyond the size and some of the things that were accomplished. One is we were privileged to plant 10 other congregations. So church planting's always been in my heart. And the other is we made the journey to become a multi-ethnic congregation. So those are the sources of greatest joy when I look back.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as we haven't mentioned yet, you transitioned then from that role to being the leader, the vice president here at Wesley Seminary. Can you tell us about how that came about, and what was it about Wesley Seminary that inspired you to devote your time to leading her?
Well, I was interested prior to that in the Wesleyan Church having its own seminary, not only to increase the availability of seminary education to those who may have not had that opportunity, but also to bless the broader Christian community. And so I was mildly interested. And then Keith Drury and Russ Gonzalez came up and visited me at the church. Talked more at that point about the possibility of serving as one of the professors. But later on, Henry Smith, who was then president of Indiana Wesleyan University, approached me about giving more of an administrative leadership to the seminary. And he said something that really made the difference for me. I said, Henry, I've only been a local church pastor. I do not have one day of academic administrative experience. And he said, exactly. And I said, what? And he said, we want the seminary to be for church pastors and lay leaders. We want it to be for the local church. So we want someone who has that background, and we can bring around you all kinds of amazing academic people. And that's just what they did. So that's how I ended up serving here at Wesley Seminary.
Wow. We are so thankful that you did. Wesley, I've said this many times, but we would not be who we are or where we are today without your godly leadership at the helm. So kind of following up on that, can you tell us what you learned maybe about yourself, ministry, and theological education through leading Wesley?
Yeah, so I was there 6.5 years. It was the initial startup years. So It was very exhilarating. Like most startups, it's both energizing and exhausting. And the team was amazing because I don't have as much background in the academy. To work with amazing deans, to have an incredibly creative faculty. I learned so much about leaning on others when you don't have the expertise. And that applied to, I wasn't here a year and we were already talking about the Spanish language program, Seminario Wesley. And to see the whole university try to adapt to having another language be part of the mix of education. I think a final thing, Joel, that was really new for me was to be kind of embedded with the seminary in a larger university context. For nearly 30 years, most of the people I led were followers, were reported to me. But at the university, then I had to learn to lead up and lead laterally and lead those who are in the seminary and so on. And that really rounded me out as a leader during those years. And I didn't know it then. It was preparing me not only to lead well at the seminary, hopefully, but for what would be done next. So it was a stretch because I'd only been in the local church. So anytime you adjust to a new culture and context, it's a stretch. But I look back on it as a stretch that really helped me grow as a person and as a leader.
Wow. Well, I've got to say, I really miss seeing you. I know last summer it was my privilege to be able to see you a lot at district conferences, and you're obviously a very sought after speaker at those. And I was really looking forward to General Conference this year, but we delayed that a year. But you have an event coming up. We have an event, the Wesleyan Church, the Together event on Pentecost Sunday, this coming Sunday. Would you like to share a little bit about that and what's going on this Sunday?
It's been a real adjustment year for us because for me especially, normally a half of my job is travel, and most of that's in North America, but some of that's in places of the world. And so that all began to change when the coronavirus pandemic began to take hold. And one of the things we were really looking forward to was gathering in St. Louis to our once every 4 years general conference. And then following that, to be to a dozen or more of our district conference. Most of them have been postponed until 2021 as well, almost all of them at this point. So the opening night of the general conference in St. Louis was on Pentecost Sunday, and we said, let's open with an upper room prayer experience, and let's have it be led by people from North America, but some of our global leaders who will be there with us. And let's connect individuals and churches and small groups and families in digitally to this experience. So we'll all be together in one room digitally, virtually, as well as on site. Well, when the conference canceled, we said, is there any way we can still do the Pentecost prayer gathering? Because we had planned for it to be largely virtual anyway. And so I don't even know if you know this, Joe, but this coming Sunday, May 31, 7 o'clock Eastern time is when that takes place. But it's actually going to be broadcast from Indiana Wesleyan University.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah, Charlie Alcock and his bunch, who are so experienced at these kind of things. They've just done some very large events recently online. They agreed to host us. And so Sunday night, we'll be broadcasting from IWU in order to, and I'm delighted. We have a good, strong response of registrants. I think we're up to a dozen countries around the world. Almost a quarter of our audience will be from a global context.
Wow.
And so it truly will be an international gathering. And one of the points I want to make is if people tune in, it'll be about an hour, but it's not a thing where you watch other people pray. So there are 8 prayer movements or themes, and someone gets it started for a minute or two, someone from somewhere in the world. And then there's a time where all of us pray, and we actually pray, and then someone kind of brings it to a close and moves us on to the next theme. So we won't just be sitting there watching others, but we'll be listening to them as they begin and then adding our own prayers to theirs.
Wow. That's exciting. I've got my reservation in, and
All right.
we'll share the link to RSVP too on the
Thank you.
post for this.
Yeah. And I know that at Wesley Seminary, one of the things I loved about it was the diversity of the student body, both in terms of generation and in ethnicity, and also denominationally. So it is not limited just to the Wesleyan Church, although it's designed with that in mind. Like Wesley Seminary, we would welcome participants, whatever their denominational affiliation might be.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So Dr. Schmidt, if someone was watching right now, a pastor or really anyone, lay leader, whatever it may be, and they're considering seminary, what would you say to them? What would your advice be?
You know, when I went to seminary, I lived near the seminary because I did not want to leave local church ministry. So really the only choice, because this was pre-internet days, was to attend a seminary near me. And the thing I loved about doing seminary that way is I would have the theological and biblical training that comes with a seminary. And then I would go right back into the practical ministry. So it was this rhythm of ministry action and theological reflection. And I love that about Wesley Seminary because they keep pastors in their context. It makes it more affordable. It makes it more practical. And at the same time, you're having this input so that you don't just become a pure pragmatist, that you really are thinking about biblically and theologically what you're doing and how you're leading. And I love that design. I think it's one of the big benefits of online. And that's been a strength that I've seen nurtured because the professors at Wesley Seminary then really try to make the course relevant to the context, the assignments relevant to the context. You know this, you're into it. And that's just an added plus. Whereas when I went to seminary, I had to figure out how to bring those two things together. At Wesley Seminary, really our faculty help us to figure that out. And that's a huge benefit. So pastors, it's affordable. It's the kind of thing that really develops you because of that rhythm that's built into it. And you can go after it at a pace that fits all the other commitments that are part of your life.
Absolutely.
So you can obviously tell I'm a raving fan still. I've been gone 4 years, but I still get so excited when I think about how it is available and now in more languages than English and literally around the world. Can I tell one more story? You know, I'm interacting with the leaders of our Ibero-America conference. This is all the Spanish-speaking countries of the world. And a significant portion of them are Wesley Seminary grads. They're Seminario Wesley grads. And part of the reason they've been able to step up and be their own regional conference is they have so many of their leaders who have graduate degrees from Seminario Wesley. And so I get to interact with people, one of whom will be a prayer leader Sunday night, one of our alum. In fact, more than one alum, but one of them is from Ibero-America. He is the leader of it, Hector Perez. Oh, yeah. And so just know that Wesley Seminary continues to make a difference every day around the world because of its alumni.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love working with our alum. They are just incredible people, the stories. And well, kind of to piggyback on that last question, then as you look back now, 4 years after you transitioned from Wesley Seminary to being general superintendent of the Wesleyan Church, how does what has become a reality at the seminary compare with the dreams that you started off with 10 years ago?
Well, before COVID took over a few months ago now, we felt we were making very significant progress in engaging the church increasingly in disciples making disciples. I think any of us who are familiar with the church know that there is a predominance of consumer Christianity where somehow following Jesus has meeting my preferences attached to it. And to turn someone from a consumer to a disciple maker, to someone who's reproducing faith in another person. What an incredible journey. And seeing progress in that area, and that also leading to all kinds of new expressions of church planting. And some clergy-led, some lay-led, some born out of business context, other contexts, some meet in homes, some meet in buildings, some meet in workplaces. It's just incredible to see the creativity that has come out of that. Now, if you ask me, is it happening as fast as you would like? The answer is no. In the local church, things happen almost on a weekly rhythm. And then as the church gets bigger, it takes a little longer. Then you get to the seminary world. But we were new and fresh and trying a lot of things. It happened pretty fast, but it just takes a while when you're kind of spread out across North America and in 100 countries of the world to kind of move together into what God is calling you to do. But I am very hopeful and encouraged by the early indications that we're well on the journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, my last question for you, and then if anything else you want to share, I'd love to have you do that. But what words of advice or wisdom would you have to share with those who are leading Wesley Seminary now?
I don't know if it's words of wisdom as much as it's words of affirmation. I see the seminary, you and Dr. Durr and Dr. Joseph, and then the faculty. Wow, incredible faculty. I see them repeatedly asking, what honors God most and what serves students best. They really are genuinely asking what will equip students to really make a difference, starting at home and then whatever their ministry context would be. And there's a whole variety of them. And in my work, I'm familiar with a lot of organizations. A lot of them talk about being focused on their constituents, but in reality, it may not be where the rubber meets the road. But I see everyone at the seminary really working, even adjusting, even going beyond what they might prefer to serve students well, to make things more accessible, to make things as affordable as they can be, to make things as excellent as they can be, academic, and there's great academic excellence. So I just love that. And but it's not to just give students what they want. It's really, and this is where the glorify God part comes in. They want students to minister out of an overflow of spiritual depth, So it's not just a transactional, you want this, we'll give you that type of thing. It's really how do we together work so that when we're done, we're all glorifying God in greater ways. So I love that about the seminary. I got to see it firsthand for 6 years. In the last 4 years, that just continues to be the case. And I celebrate that. That pursuit is still there. And quite frankly, in many ways, Wesley Seminary has been successful. Sometimes when something's in the early years and it's struggling, it can really stay on point. But then when success comes, you know, you can begin to think, oh, how do we impress others? How do we, you know, and Wesley Seminary just resisted that and stayed focused on what they believe God's called them to do. So I'm so grateful for that. That's why I still give to the seminary, as you well know. That's why I still talk about the seminary wherever I'm at. That's why, as a Wesleyan church, our partnership with the seminary is a huge priority for us, because now over 10 years in, still well on track. So love it.
Amen. Well, sir, I can't thank you enough for your time and for your friendship, your leadership, as you said, your support, continued support of the seminary, and just am so thankful for your godly leadership. And we continue to pray for you and in your ministry and your safety and your family. And just thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you, Joel, for the opportunity. You know, I name you in prayer every morning, and that continues. And let me make that a closing challenge to everyone listening. I hope you're praying for your professors and for administrators and for those who lead Wesley Seminary. Let's be lifting them up, because these are kind of rigorous days for those in educational ministry. So I want you to know every morning. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother. You as well. And remember, for those watching, we are Wesley, and you belong here. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.